The age of the boring hybrid is over, and this might just be the car that puts the nail in the coffin. It's the new Lamborghini Revuelto, a car that not only has a big V12, but 3 electric motors, giving it a total of 1,001 horsepower. It's not just about speed. It also has an advanced new all-wheel drive system, active aerodynamics, and a whole new stability control system too, making this easily the most high-tech Lamborghini ever to hit the road. But today, we're more interested in what it's like on the track. That's what I came here to Italy to find out, and you are coming along for the ride. So the heart of the car is definitely still the V12 in the middle. Again, a 6.5 liter with the first electric motor mounted right on the back, mated with the new 8-speed dual clutch transmission. It's interesting actually that that transmission is on the back of the motor. Traditionally for Lamborghinis, they have the transmission mounted out front. By spinning that around, that gave the designers room to put a new battery pack in the middle that powers the hybrid system. It's only a 3.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack, about 1/20th the size of a Tesla Model 3, for example, and that means this can only do about 6 miles on a charge, so it's certainly not a traditional plug-in hybrid in that regard. But the intent isn't really here for long emissions-free motoring. It's all about performance. That battery pack powers both the rear motor and also the 2 motors up front. Having 2 motors up front means that this car can split power from left to right, helping it to turn around corners, something that I'm looking forward to sampling when we get out there on the racetrack. All 3 of those motors work together in concert with a new stability control system that allows this car to basically, instead of cutting power when the wheels start to spin, it can actually tap that power through the electric motors and send that back into the battery to give you more power the next time you get down the straight. We've also got some cool stuff going on in the interior, which we'll take a look at next. Yes, the doors still open the right way on the Revuelto. It's a little easier to get into, though, than in the Aventador. The roof's a little higher. There's a little bit smaller door sill, which makes it a little bit easier. But once you're in here, we've got a whole new interior that's much more advanced than what we've seen before. We have a portrait-oriented touchscreen here in the middle, along with a fully virtual gauge cluster behind the steering wheel, and also another display right in front of the passenger where they can look at information. But the cool thing is, as you tap through the touchscreen here and go to different things, you can bring up some more advanced gauges for on-track action, engine temperature, transmission temperature, things like that. And in addition to displaying them here in the center touchscreen, I can actually do 2 fingers and drag it over to the left and have it pop up on the gauge cluster, or I can do 2 fingers and drag it over to the right and have it pop up for the passenger over there. So if I want them to look at how many G's I'm pulling through a corner, it's just a 2-finger swipe to do that. That's something that I've never seen in a car before. It's kind of a neat technology in a Lamborghini of all things. But it's not all touchscreens. There's also some nice tactility here on the steering wheel with some gauges and knobs that control the drive modes. But again, the big question is what this is going to be like on the racetrack. I think it's time to find out. All right, time to head out on track in the V12 hybrid, 1,001 horsepower Revuelto. We're at a circuit called Vallelunga, which is about 45 minutes outside of Rome. It's a great track to test this car because it has some long, fast stretches where we can get up to high speed, but also a really tight, twisty infield section where we should have a really good test of all the different systems that are going on in this car, between the rear steering, the dual electric motors up front, for torque vectoring, and of course the 3rd electric motor out back, and that big V12. I'm very curious to feel how everything all fits together. Coming out of this tighter corner, I can already say I can feel the power application from the electric motors. You know, big V12 has got a lot of power for sure, but typically in a V12, they're known for delivering more high RPM performance. They kind of take a minute to get up to steam, and they rev really high to give really good power at the high end. But with the Revuelto here, we've got great throttle response immediately coming out of even tighter corners, coming into this hairpin here. Get on the throttle and it just immediately kicks forward, which is nice and addictive. Also sampling the new dual clutch 8-speed transmission. That was one of the issues with the outgoing Aventador. You know, really interesting, great, iconic car in a lot of ways, but that old transmission in that thing was very brutal. This new 8-speed dual clutch transmission not only shifts quicker, it's a little bit smoother too. Actually, it's a lot smoother, but it still has that kind of a little bit of a, not quite a kick, maybe a bit of a push in the back end instead of a kick this time. All right, now we're coming into the infield section here, which is really tight and twisty. This is a great opportunity to sample the rear steering and the front active differentials to see just how well this car handles the tighter stuff. This is a longer car than the Aventador, longer wheelbase anyway, and a heavier car, about 500 pounds heavier than the Aventador. But honestly, out here, from a pure feel standpoint, it actually feels lighter. It turns right into these hairpin corners amazingly well, and then coming out of it, really light and nimble. I know it's not actually lighter, but it does genuinely feel lighter. Foot flat to the floor of a really tight, twisty, or tricky, I should say, front straight, off camber, dive in this really high speed corner, doing about just over 200 kilometers an hour through there. Cars moving around underneath me here, but it feels nice, solid, and planted. The help from the stability control systems. The rear motor is actually doing some active regen at that point. That's one of the interesting things about this car is that, you know, a stability control system, a traction control system, usually it cuts power, you know, reduces the fuel supply to the engine to cut down on wheel spin. But here in the Revuelto, Lamborghini engineers are able to dial up the regen on that electric motor at the back to increase the overall traction of the car to keep you from spinning out coming out of a tight hairpin like this. And rather than cutting power, they can just give you regen and send it right back to the battery to give you more power to come down the next straight. That's amazing. And as far as regen goes, the Revuelto does a really great job of managing the feel of the brake pedal. This is a full brake-by-wire system, meaning the car is basically deciding how much braking to do with the electric motors in front and how much to use the physical brakes. But it just gives me a really nice solid pedal feel. No negative feedback, not even any noisy sensation of ABS or anything like that, just really solid braking every time. Okay, time to let the Revuelto cool down. This gives me a moment to recollect my thoughts too, and this is a remarkably impressive car again, heavier than the Aventador, but significantly more nimble out here, a lot more fun through these tight, twisty corners, but so much power down that twisty front straight as it's flying over the crest and coming down. Feels stable and planted, but light and nimble through the tighter bits, and a remarkable balance. Remarkable car. We're running out of daylight here in Italy, but what an incredible day it's been. I honestly wasn't sure what to expect when the new Revuelto was announced. The Aventador, the car that it replaces, it felt kind of big and heavy on the track, and that this one is even bigger and even heavier, I wasn't necessarily optimistic. But after spending a day of hot lapping, I gotta say, I'm remarkably impressed. This car feels light, it feels nimble, it's a lot more playful out there, and it's simply a lot of fun. I am really impressed by what Lamborghini has achieved here, and I'm only left wishing that I had about $600,000 to spare. That's it for my time here in the Revuelto here in Italy. I think this is a fantastic car, but I want to know what you think. Are you excited about the future of electrification for Lamborghini? Or should they just stick to big old V12s? Let us know down in comments. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And as always, check out Engadget.com for a lot more.